Hello, welcome back to another SwansCast match preview. Game week 2 in the Championship, and the Swans are going to be playing Preston North End at home. I should say managerless Preston North End, if anybody's kept up with what's been going on in the last week or so. And we've got Ollie here from the Butterpie podcast to tell us all about it. He's been here a couple of times before, Ollie, so welcome back, and I appreciate you joining me again.
No, thanks for having me on again, Luke. Yeah, nice seeing you again.
Yeah, I think the last couple of times there's been a bit of drama actually between the clubs recently, isn't there? You had the whole thing with Joe Allen and Lowe, and now you're going to tell us all about Lowe not being there anymore. So quite a bit to discuss. But before we get into it, do you want to just let us know where we can find your content and your podcast?
Yeah, so usually on Twitter or X, it's at the Butterpie Pod. And then obviously on all good streaming sites. We've had a bit of issue with Apple Podcasts, hopefully getting that fixed. But all over Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all good streaming sites. Just the Butterpie Podcast, and you'll see us there.
Brilliant. So go check out the Butterfly podcast. We did have the backstory about the name, I think, in the first video you were on with us. Bit of an interesting one as well. But I think basically, if you go to the away game later in the season, the general narrative is try a butter pie. Yeah.
Yeah. Put some brown sauce on top, and it's a winner.
Definitely one to try if you're going up to Preston this season. Okay, so I was going to say, how did last season go compared to expectations? As my first question. I guess you can kind of touch on that and then transition into why that maybe has led to the situation you find yourself in now without a manager.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so last season, I think for North End, fans' expectations are really for us to at least compete. We're not expecting playoffs. We're expecting us to at least compete. Give us something to want to cheer behind, because North End are naturally in mid-table. It's wherever we'll always be in everyone's predictions, will be mid-table. So I think what the fans want is good football. They want something to get behind and be able to see a progression to perhaps we can do something next season or potentially this season, etc. And it was a bit of a roller coaster last season. We started off brilliantly. I thought after the first 10 games, I think we didn't concede in the first 8. And you start to think, when are we going to concede again? And then we had a bit of a car crash. I think it was 23 games, 5 wins. And then obviously we played yourselves, Swansea at that time away, and we ended up losing. Was it either 2-0 or 2-1 at your place?
Yeah.
And I went to you and I went, this could be Ryan Lowe's last game here. And then after it, he got given the vote of confidence from the board, which is, in football manager terms, if you lose your next 2 games, you're gone. So then we went on a little bit of a winning run. So it's gone from promotion form to absolutely abysmal relegation form to maybe we're making a push for the playoffs. And then the last 5 or 6 games were abysmal. We didn't score in any of the 5. We conceded 13, lost them all. Terrible. And I think fans just thought, we've fallen away again. Lowe kind of deteriorated with the fans coming to the end of last season. And then obviously coming into this season, it was a bit of a dismal display. It was the same as last season. We didn't lay a finger on Sheffield United, and obviously we didn't score again. So if taking consideration of the end of last season, that was 6 games where we've not scored and we've lost. I think fans just had enough. The relationship between fans and Ryan Lowe was deteriorating, and to be fair, without Lowe leaving, I think it would have happened anyway. I think it probably would have happened around about November, December time. So it's happened now. I just can't believe that it's not been done prior to the season starting, or even in
pre-season. Yeah, I was going to say, didn't they back him in the summer with a few of his signings?
Yeah. So he's been not, I wouldn't say heavily backed, but he's the most backed Preston North End manager that has been in recent times. We brought in obviously Forderson. Obviously Brown did end up leaving, and there's been a lot of rumours about why he didn't sign on. Potentially, it could have been because of his relationship with Ryan Lowe. That's, putting 2 and 2 together. But Forderson looks a really good signing. We've just signed Ockles, so potentially he could be a bit of a fun winger. Depends on who comes in. And then obviously we brought in Kane Kessler-Hayden and who else am I trying to think of? Oh, Sam Greenwood again as well. He looks all right. He just needs to, build a bit of confidence because he seemed a very inconsistent player at Middlesbrough last season. But, if we're able to maintain that good form and get onto it, he seems a right player as well. So he's been backed low and then left. So he's kind of left us in the here and about stage. But I still think we need 2 or more signings. But now we've got to wait for a manager to come in to look at things, and then we're going to have one week to try and source a couple of players if we even do it.
Yeah.
So who knows? It's just thrown a bit of a spanner in the works.
Okay, who do you expect to replace him? Obviously, for Swans fans, there'll be a bit of interest that Mike Marsh is currently in charge, obviously at the club under Steve Cooper. So he knows a lot about us, potentially, or at least he would have known a lot about us back in that time. I think it's been a lot of change now, so as much as he'll probably say, oh, I know all about the Swans, I'm not sure how much of that Swans is left. No. But, I mean, I guess it's better than having no sort of knowledge of us going into the game on the weekend. But yeah, what do you expect under Mike Marsh, and who do you think might be the next man for the job?
To be honest, there's a couple of names who I think will be next for the job. In terms of obviously the Saturday's game, Mike Marsh has mentioned that he thought we did well playing with a back 4. He thought we were stronger. I think the Swans play with a flat 4. Is it 4-2-3?
Yeah, it is, but it kind of changes depending on the ball and stuff like that. It's a bit trying to be more fluid and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Where they change depending on transitions and stuff, but it sets up as a back 4.
I think we might end up seeing that North End Mike Marsh tries and gets North End to probably match Swansea up and play 4 at the back, which we haven't notoriously done in the past 2.5 years. But obviously before then, our style was 4-2-3-1 counter-attacking. So we might see that come up again. I fully expect Swansea to have more the ball. And I'm expecting North End to try and, catch them on a high press. I know you mentioned in your little preview about having Ronald and a South Korean lad on the wings who are fairly quick. Yeah. I'd fully expect North End to try and match that up. Obviously, we've got Kane Kessler-Hayden who's been brought in. He's fairly quick at the right back slot. I'd expect us to probably match up and try and nullify your wings first and foremost. So I think it'll be a good game. I really do. I'm not anticipating a win, but I mean, a new manager bounce. Mads Frokjaer seems to be right up for it. I'm not too sure if he had a strange relationship with Lowe, but for me, he's one of the best creative midfielders in the league when he's on it. So if he's given the freedom, who knows? I just can't see us going away to Swansea and getting anything other than a draw maximum. Which, if you asked me beforehand, I'd have snapped your hand off. Who I'm fully expecting to get the job. There's obviously, I mentioned before we started recording, there was Paul Heckingbottom. I think he's probably got a good chance. He maybe not as exciting and doesn't really, but I wouldn't be mad at Paul Heckingbottom. He's proven at the level. He got Sheffield United, obviously a very good team and squad he had promoted. He's loved there. There's Neil mentioned, who I'd love back. The first 2 seasons under Neil was the best football I've seen at Deepdale in a long time. And there's been another name, well, not mentioned, but what one I'd like is Kim Hellberg from, I think it's Haddonay in Sweden. He's the coach there who replaced Fuentes, who's now obviously at QPR. And I think Kim was doing a couple of interviews in the summer at QPR and Sunderland. So I'd like to have a look at him. I'd like to broaden our horizons other than, English and Scottish managers. I think now's the time to branch out, especially as we're normally only signing Scandinavian players now.
Yeah, fair enough. It'll be interesting. Obviously, there's not much time left for the transfer window to get that over the line. And if there's any backing for their own players then to come in, I guess that'll be interesting for you. Do you
Yeah,
think maybe this going to happen in time, or?
I think it's probably got to get done next week if you're wanting, a manager to come in to want to, because North End aren't really a sacking club. We don't really bring managers in and sack them straight away. We normally give them the benefit of the doubt to build their own side. So I'd expect North End to hopefully get one over the line after the Swansea game. I wouldn't expect Mike Marsh to be in the box, dug out for any as number one for any longer than the Swansea game. I'd hope we give him enough time to be able to, assess what it is and get potentially one or two more, because I definitely feel like we need to improve in, two positions, especially at centre back, left back, potentially, if they play with wingers or right winger. So who knows?
Fair enough. I did want to say though, obviously, maybe it didn't go well in your first league game, but you did get a win under Mike Marsh against Sunderland in the Cup. Yeah. Was that like a case of a much changed side for both of you, or do you think there's some themes there that show that perhaps now Lowe is gone, you might see a bit more from the team?
Well, it was a massively changed squad for Sunderland, especially. They made 11 changes, so it was kind of like we were playing against Sunderland's a B team, but Sunderland have a lot of good quality and depth, I believe. They've got, a couple of good players. Romain Mundell was fantastic, and then Barr was very good as well. North End, they made 3 changes, but largely stuck with the main kind of players for the team. I felt like Mark needed to get a confidence booster, especially with the squad. Just to kind of get the fans a tiny bit back on board. Everything's good. Winning in football's always good, and especially a confidence booster, obviously, after the news of Lowe leaving. I think fans are a lot more optimistic going in there, and I think we are a very confidence-based side. I'm massive on, fans influencing how the players play, because especially at Deepdale, if, it gets a bit toxic and there's booing, there's bound to be mistakes. But, I'm more optimistic than I was under Ryan Lowe, actually, going into this game. So fingers crossed we'll play with a bit more freedom and just kind of allow players to show what they can do, especially, to try and entice a new manager to come along.
It's quite similar down the Swansea.com stadium, where if it isn't going so well, it can get a little bit toxic as well. But
yeah,
it's okay at the moment, so hopefully it stays that way going into this game. Okay, so based on what's happened right now, it's probably a difficult question to answer, but I was going to ask what your expectations are for the season, really. But I guess that might be different now, or you can't really put your finger on it because you're not really sure what to expect depending on who gets brought in.
No, exactly that. I don't anticipate us to go down. I think we've got enough quality, no matter who comes in, to be able to stay up. But then, obviously, I'm not too sure who's going to come in, and if we hit the ground running with a new manager bounce and try and build on said brand that a manager wants to bring in. If I had to guess right now about where we'd land, hopefully with a manager who's able to build and play good football, I'd have us around about 14th at the moment. I'm not going to go too high. I'm not going to go too low. I just think, this is now gone from Ryan Lowe trying to prove himself and try and get North End pushing up for the top 6 to maybe a bit of a rebuilding season where, we're trying to get a new manager in, trying to implement a new style and play good football back again, because some of the football we played under Ryan Lowe wasn't very good on the eye. So it's going to be a bit of a transitional season, but I think we'll be safe during the transitional season. So I'll stick us around about 14th.
Okay, so looking at this game specifically then, I know you've already touched on perhaps the style you'd expect you to deploy against Swansea, a little bit more of a counter-attack, let us have the ball, maybe matching us up with the formation as well and a bit of pace in the wide defensive areas. Yeah. Do you have like an expected lineup or some players that you expect to feature? And out of those, which ones are the key players that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, so if we are going to go for a 4-back, it's obviously going to be Freddie Woodman, obviously ex-Swansea player in the net. And then we've got Kane Kessler-Hayden, who I think we'll bring in to match up. We'll have Jordan Story, who played well on Tuesday. We'll have Liam Lindsay, who's a mainstead, one player of the year. We'll have Andrew Hughes. And I'd like to see a midfield of Whiteman, Forderson and Frockier. But I think Ryan Ledson will be in there because he was terrific on Tuesday. And then I think we'll play Greenwood, Potts on the right. And I think we'll have Osmajic up top. But the main one to watch, as I always say, is number 10, Mads Frockier. If you give him time on the ball and you allow him to play his game with freedom, he's going to be a threat to anyone in the league, I believe. So he's the main one to watch out. And if you're Swansea, I'm sure Luke Williams is looking to nullify Mads Frockier straight away. I'm
sure that will be the job of one of our midfields for sure. Maybe Mac Rhymes, he's the one who usually sits quite deep. So speaking of Swansea players, do you have any specifically that do concern you?
Well, I remember last time I said Jerry Yates because he was an ex-Blackpool player, but obviously he's not really turned out well for...
No, he's gone to Derby now.
Yeah, so I'm not too fussed. The main one I think is going to be Ronald. He seems a really good player, and it's going to be hard to nullify him. Brad Potts played right back. If Brad Potts is, we stay to 3-5-2, we have Brad Potts coming against Ronald, I think it'll be a really long day for North End.
You say right back. I couldn't tell you which side that Ronald might actually start on, to be honest. Last season he was always on the right for us, but he started last game. I came on in the in the league game because he was on the bench with injury.
Yeah.
He's on his way back. I'm expecting that he'll start this game, but he came on the left this season. So
okay.
I don't know.
The South Korean lad, what's his name?
But he's played on both sides too.
So they might end up switching around. So
he's sung on, if you want to say the full name. So.
I'd expect both wings to be the real threat for both of you, as I mentioned before. So notoriously, we've not really done well with when we play with wing backs. Robbie Brady has not been in great form. Obviously, had a good pre-season. Andrew Hughes at left centre back, who we will move back to left back in a back four. He's not had the greatest seasons. Obviously, he was all right against Sunderland, but you're coming up against the B team there. So we'll see. Hopefully, our players are given a confidence boost, but I expect it to be really tough for us, especially in the wing areas.
I think I might have said it in the video that I sent for your podcast, but we play Cardiff after yourselves, and not to discredit the match against you in any way, shape or form. It's just unfortunate timing, I think. We're having such a big match so early in the season.
Yeah.
That I feel like because of the way this fixtures are panned out, we started away in Middlesbrough. We only lost 1-0, but it was a loss. I think it is vital that we need to look to get a win here just to take some momentum into the big match for us. So for me, I'm expecting us to go out there and make a statement, if you like. Because Cardiff are playing Burnley and...
Tough game.
Yeah, so... You want to get that advantage, maybe with a bit of momentum, we're the home team going into that as well. So, yeah, if that, that's what I personally think Swansea needs to be looking to do. And unfortunately, you just happen to be the team that's in the way of getting that result, But it doesn't mean it's going to be the case.
Oh.
But that's what I'm expecting anyways, for us to try and make a statement at home first game and going into that.
I think it's a bit of a weird game because North End fans are now looking at it and thinking, we're not anticipating anything because we're going to be getting a new manager soon. And Swansea fans are thinking, we've got Cardiff, we've got to get some help. So it could work for both sides. North End maybe don't have that much to play for. I know it's crazy saying that in the second game of the season, but maybe, they've got nothing to lose, really. In
a bit of no man's land, in terms of waiting for who's next and then what we're actually going to be working towards.
Absolutely. Maybe it just gives a chance for the players to prove themselves, and maybe it might, work for our advantage. But
I'm a bit worried.
Maybe as you mentioned there, you're going to do to your advantage and want to get, obviously, across the line so you can set yourself up for a big game against Cardiff. I think it'll be really tough for both sides. I I know you expect to win. I'm going to be optimistic with North End. I'm going to expect a draw.
That's fair.
I'd expect a 1-1. I'd take that all day, to be fair. In the back of my mind, I'm just seeing 2-1 and, Ronald scoring in the last minute or something.
But he's only scored 3 goals for us. But when I say I expect to win, I feel like that's what we should be doing. Do I think we will win the game? Not as confident as to say that's what I would say is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I expect to win because I think they should go out and win the game, but I don't know if I don't know if I have faith that they actually do that. I have concerns over our attacking output at the moment.
Yeah.
It didn't really show too much at all away at Middlesbrough, and we had like 60% of the ball. And even in the cup against Gillingham, even though it was a much changed team, Ronald, he had a really good game. Probably the only person doing much attacking going forward. In the second half, then especially, Gillingham went down to 10 men, and we really struggled to create a chance for the first 30 minutes of the second half until there was really some substitutes made who actually clicked straight away, and we got a second goal. But I think before that second goal, we didn't have a shot in the second half. So considering they were playing with 10 men for most of it, that's not the best stat to be talking about. But then we also conceded a goal against them with their first walk into our own half. They didn't have the ball after going to 10 men. They went into a half once and they managed to get a goal out of it. So for me, I have concerns over our defending, which I think is masked a bit by how much we keep the ball. Mm-hmm. But then when we haven't got the ball, even though it's less often, we seem more vulnerable during that less often, if that makes sense. Okay, whereas maybe if you're a team that has less of the ball but is quite robust defensively and you concede one, say you concede one with 20% possession, that's probably quite a good return. If you concede in 1 goal when the opponent's having 20% possession, I think that's quite a poor return.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'd agree. Yeah. So, maybe the counter-attacking is going to work to our advantage, but, knowing my optimism, we'll probably concede in the first 5 minutes. So, it'll be a tough game, I think, for both sides, and there's not going to be a lot in it. Obviously, when watching the game, you're probably going to think Swansea's all over us, but I think the chances will go both ways. And I think both teams will score. So fingers crossed it's not.
No, we're used to that. We're used to that when all the ball and thinking that we're in control, but conceding is what always happens, because that's how teams set up against us when we play this style of football. So it's something that we're definitely used to watching. But thanks for joining me anyway. I always like to end on a bit of a novelty question. You probably had 2 different ones last year, so I've got another that you wouldn't have answered. So what is your best ever away day that you've been to?
Wow.
I know it puts people on the spot, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's been a few. There was Stoke away. That was a great away day. Bolton away. That was a fantastic one. But I don't know why one's springing in my mind now. It was a Carabao Cup game away at Morecambe, actually, funnily enough. So midweek game, probably think nothing on it, but it was a fantastic game. I think we won 3-2. And Ryan Ledson scored an absolute perler from outside the box in the 80th minute, where I'm right behind the goal and it swerves out and straight into the top corner. I thought that was fantastic, especially as my mate's a Morecambe fan. But I think the main one, obviously, Blackburn Rovers away last season. Obviously, a little bit of a rivalry there, and Liam Lindsay goes and sticks a header in the dying seconds of the game. So I think that's got to be the top of my list so far.
Brilliant. It's always nice to get one over on your rivals, isn't it? Especially when it's stolen quite late in the day like that. We had one recently with Ben Cabango doing the same sort of thing away at Cardiff. But yeah, so thank you very much, Ollie. Do you want to remind everyone where they can find you on socials?
Yeah, so at the Butterpie Pod on Twitter or X, whichever you want, and obviously on Instagram the same as well. And the Butterpie Podcast on all good streaming sites, I should say.
Thank you very much, and good luck after the weekend, of course. And I'm sure we'll catch you later in the season.
Yeah, you too, Luke. Good luck, but not for this weekend.
Cheers.